The Lions and the Stormers had a bye this weekend, and the Sharks were the only South African side that registered a win. To discuss these and more sporting headlines from the weekend, I'm joined in studio by Sport24 editor Garen Namley and chief writer Rob Howing. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you very much for coming in.
Hello, Nick.
Rob, the Sharks had a great result against the Hurricanes, and I suppose maybe not that surprising that the Bulls went down to the Brumbies, but it was quite a disappointing result, quite a big margin.
Yeah, definitely the highlight of the weekend, and thank goodness it came, because South African teams have had a fairly lean return in the last couple of weeks. Look, you know, the Bulls game, as you say, Brumbies away, Canberra, not a great place for South African teams, and so it proved. I thought they were never really in the picture. They just didn't seem to pitch up mentally, I thought, the Bulls, after having had a really encouraging first game against the Force. So that was a bit disappointing. Cheetahs losing to Waratahs, that was always on the cards, especially because they slightly debatably went with a very weakened tight five, and it showed, because they got scrummed to death and only really started to stabilise a little bit towards the end when it was way too late. So they were also convincingly beaten. Kings, gutsy, but there's not much more you can say about the Kings than that. They lost to the weakest New Zealand franchise at home, which still tells you plenty about the imbalance between the two countries from that point of view. But yes, the Sharks, that really was the sort of the huge morale booster for the weekend, because I thought it was a terrific performance, considering where the Hurricanes had come from, having stuffed the Lions, putting 50 on them in Johannesburg. For the Sharks obviously did a lot of work on the drawing board in the week, must have spent a lot of time, and kudos to Gary Gold and all the coaching staff and the players for working out what had gone wrong for the Lions when they played the Hurricanes, to the extent that when they came out, they made sure that they weren't going to be bullied at the breakdown, that they would have to be up for it physically, and boy, they were. I mean, especially in that first 10 or 15 minutes of the second half, when I said, I wondered what had been put into the Sharks' bananas at half time. They were absolutely monumental. They almost looked like sort of title-winning material, which we know they're not quite at this stage, but very much in the running. And I thought a lot of players stuck their hands up for the Sharks. The two Dupree twins were incredibly industrious. They got through a mountain of work and tackling and so on. I thought Andre Esterhuizen,
they've been a real revelation for the Sharks this season.
They have. They've been. They really are sort of considering their youth. They almost look like sort of some of the most senior players in the ranks. But Esterhuizen had an excellent game at inside centre. Very physical, very powerful on the gain line. And young Garth April at fly half, again very, very decent. And then a little bit of anger, I suppose, on social media when he came off, having played really well, to give Lambie a run. But then, in fairness, Pat Lambie, who is a Springbok, came on and it looked as though he'd never been away. I thought he was superb for those last 20. So a pleasant little predicament for them there. So a really, really dynamic weekend for the Sharks, and I think they can take a lot of heart from that performance.
Looking at the rest of the results, Garen, and the overall log, the Crusaders are now the sort of the top side, and the Highlanders this weekend showing that they are the defending champions. Don't write them off. What did you make of some of the other results?
Yeah, I mean, those Crusaders, they're moving nicely in the right direction. They're now my favourites for the title. I think they won 8 in a row after losing in the first weekend. I still think they've got the best pack of forwards in the entire competition. Full of All Blacks, but some really experienced players there, especially, a real good tight five. Kieran Reid, Jordan Tafua playing some really good rugby, and a couple of others. They've got some great depth. Their backline has been their weakness this year. They've obviously got no Dan Carter there. This Richie Moanga, they've entrusted him, I think, every single weekend, and he's slowly getting better. He's kicking a little bit better, and I think if he fires, and Nadolo on the wing, and Ryan Crotty comes back, Israel Daggs added tremendous experience at the back. They're going to be really, really tough to beat, especially if they get to sort of host a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and perhaps the final in Christchurch. Not many teams go to Christchurch and walk away winners. The Chiefs have been the top New Zealand side this year to date. I haven't really been sold on them. They're missing some key players. Sonny Bill Williams and Liam Mess in particular. They're at the sevens for the All Blacks in Rio. So they've been at the top, but they lost to the Highlanders, like you said, this weekend, the defending champions. Highlanders have got some fantastic players themselves, the Aaron Smith and Ben Smith, playing some fantastic rugby. They're also going to be there or thereabouts. The Blues, as Rob mentioned, the weakest of the New Zealand teams, unbelievably, still racking up the victories, picking up bonus points. And then the Hurricanes and the Chiefs going down this weekend. But all those New Zealand teams sort of fighting for the playoff spots, they all can't make it. But I think if we went back to just pure points, forget conference winners, getting the top 3 spots, all those New Zealand teams would be in the reckoning for the overall title. So, they're not going to be too upset after 11 rounds of rugby, how they're travelling this year, heading into the Rugby Championships. I think they've got a mid-year series against, is it Wales that they play, that's obviously building up for that. So they certainly look like they're going to be in form for the remainder of the tournament.